Coming up tonight, we return to the Bimini Beach Club, take a look back at the Scarlet journey, and hopefully Virgin gains a little bit of resilience. It's all coming up, so let's set sail. Welcome to day number 10 of the cruise view from onboard Virgin Voyages Scarlet Lady. Today was Tuesday, October 19th, 2021, and the 10th and final day of this back-to-back sailing. 5 days on the first voyage, 5 on the second, same itinerary both times, and it is all coming to an end tonight. Got some statistics on this sailing, just like the last one. We have slightly more crew and guests on board than we did last sailing. We have a total of 1,324 guests on board, with 1,279 from the US, so a bit of a gain from the last voyage. It was certainly noticeable at a couple points during this sailing, while other times it actually seemed slightly less crowded. It was definitely a different makeup of crowd, different type of passenger that was on board the sailing, and that definitely made a difference in what kind of activities they attended and which they did not. In terms of nationalities, we had about 17 countries. Of course, the US being the primary one as always, and those numbers overall give us about 48% capacity, so still less than half capacity of the ship, but of course a little bit more than the 44% we had last sailing. And our crew number is up to 1,140, so still not quite the 1-to-1 ratio, but fairly close for a cruise ship, especially a mass market cruise ship. That is not something you often see. Our location today was, just like last sailing, Bimini, Bahamas. The final day of the voyage is a stop in Bimini, Virgin Voyages private beach club location. And once again, we got there extra early to ensure the crew had plenty of time to get everything set up, get all the resources from the ship transported over to the beach club. So this morning we were turning into the port at about 6:55 a.m. We began our rotation to turn for aligning to the pier at about 7:13, and we're backing into the spot by 7:20. Our lines were lowered at 7:40 and we were fully docked by 7:50. Just like last time though, to give the crew that time to get everything set up, we were not cleared until 8:58. That is when a notice came through the app to let us know that we were cleared to go ashore and begin enjoying our day at the Bimini Beach Club. And unlike last time, there was no rain. So it was a beautiful morning, nice, clear, sunny skies out there. Bit of wind though, it was a very windy day. But without that rain, it meant you could go ashore right away. The first tram left at 9:07. That was when the first guests that made it off the ship got down to the tram area and were able to board it. And the first several trams that I watched actually had empty seats. So there was no mad dash, there was no rush to get off the ship. I'm not sure if people even realized it, 'cause a lot of people's apps are not working right now and haven't worked most of the voyage, so I'm sure many did not get the notice. And there was no announcement across the ship, so unless you were watching outside, you didn't know whether we were actually cleared or not for the most part. Tonight then, we had an all aboard at 9:30, and just like last time, everybody was here extra early. I was not at the beach club at the end of the day, but for the last half hour, by about 9 p.m., the pier was empty. There was pretty much nobody left to come aboard the ship. It was completely deserted, and most likely by that time, the beach club was deserted as well. So 9:30 was the all aboard, 10 o'clock was the departure time, but by 9:37, we were lowering our lines. 9:43, the thrusters kicked in to help move us aside from the pier, because we had that very unique departure process where we slide sideways away from the pier to get away from the main base of that long dock area where the trams are driving around and picking passengers up, so that we can then kick in our propellers about 9:48 to begin pulling out to sea. And it is a very quick departure process, because 9:48 propellers kicked in, started moving out, and by 9:57 the pilot was getting off of the ship and getting onto the pilot boat to head back ashore. Tonight we had a couple ship spottings. We have a lot of ships around because of the fact that we are in the waters between Bimini and Miami. That is a very popular area. All those cruise ports, Port Canaveral, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, all the ships that are heading in and out of port, as well as between those destinations and places like Nassau, private destinations, other areas of the Caribbean and Mexico, of course, all pass through this little area of water here. So tonight at about 11:20, we saw the Serenade of the Seas off on the horizon, and a bit later at 1 a.m. you could see the Carnival Legend as well. You can also see a few other ships, but mainly just the lights on the horizon. From looking at the map, I know there are a lot more ships out there, but it's a bit harder to make out the exact details of those ships. And this journey to Miami is a slow one. We do not have very far to go for how long we have to get there, so we're only going about 8 knots, which makes it a very calm and slow journey across the area. As for our weather today, we had a sunrise at 7:18 a.m., so just after we were starting our docking process, just a little bit before we were fully docked. So if you're out there watching our arrival, you got to see that nice sunrise this morning. And this evening we had a sunset at 6:46 p.m. And that one, just like last time we were up in Bimini, unfortunately the clouds got in the way. It looked like it was going to be a nice sunset, and then sun dropped right behind a cloud and just kind of destroyed it all right at the end. Our conditions for the day were partly cloudy. The sun was in and out of those clouds. No rain showers though. We stayed dry all day, and it was beautiful conditions out. The cloud cover made it a little bit cooler, so it wasn't overly hot, but it was definitely still a nice, warm, enjoyable day to be out at the beach and the pool. Our high was 82 degrees and the low 79, so just the right temperatures to enjoy that day at Bimini. And the seas were calm, but unfortunately the winds were 20 miles an hour, so it was very windy out there, and that did cause the seas along the coast to stir up a little bit, cause some waves if you were trying to enjoy the beach at Bimini today, and also just make it a little bit chillier when you're getting in and out of that water. So now moving on to our lineup, of course, was Bimini Day, which meant a lot of time ashore. This morning, woke up for that arrival, had some breakfast in the Galley, and then headed ashore about 10 a.m. this morning. So got there pretty early for Bimini, earlier than last time because there was no rain to hold us up. And this time, it actually stayed empty for a while. It seemed like last voyage we must have had a lot more travel agents, a lot more people that wanted to rush to get that footage of the private destination, and that led to an actual surge of people right at the beginning. Today, it seemed to stay pretty empty for a while. It was probably closer to 11 o'clock that you really started to see those crowds kind of arrive to the destination. And just like last time, we did have a lunch offered on the shore. We could go there, and of course all the food comes straight from our ship, and they did have that same lunch as last time with that incredible pork that they served there. It did also, once again though, switch that lighter fare later in the day, so you need to get there early if you want that good pork, the nice full meal, because it seems like it's only about maybe 12 to 1 that you can get that. It seems like not long after 1 that it kind of flips over to the other meal and you no longer can get the good lunch offerings that are available. Then there was a game that took place on the beaches of Bimini, the We Run This Beach, and that was scheduled last week as well. Looked for it, could not find it. It's listed as being on the court, which, according to all the maps of the Bimini Beach Resort, is an area that is just a wide open location of sand surrounded by trees off in the top left corner of the resort. Basically an open area. They would kind of expect volleyball courts or something similar to that, away from the beach, away from the pool, away from all of those kinds of lounging locations, and secluded from the rest of the resort. Last week I looked for it there, I looked for it on the beach, could not find it anywhere, but today, as I was headed back to the court area to find it, I walked up the beach and found it right at the very edge of the Bimini Beach Resort, all the way over by the beach supply rental area. So it was tucked off in the distance. I'm not sure if they had it last week and I just missed it, or it was something that did not occur last time but did today. Either way, it was definitely an entertaining activity to watch and participate if you wanted to. So that activity involved finding out who wanted to participate, determining how many people per team, and setting up a series of teams to participate in this competition between different groups. Went through a series of rounds and activities, the first one being to create a sandcastle as quick as you can, and that was kind of the score marker for each team. A nice sandcastle that they created to represent themselves, and throughout the competition they collected flags depending on how well they performed so that they could place them on their castle, and at the end whoever had the most flags decorating their castle was the overall winner. So each round was a different activity. Some of them were a little more mental and required thinking, others were more physical. Some of them were a bit of a trick that you need to figure out, while others were just all about pure strength and athleticism in order to win the competition. So that took place from 2 to 3 o'clock out on the beach, and after that I took one last look around the resort and headed back to the ship. It is the last night, which meant there was a lot of stuff that needed to get done. That is part of the problem with the way that Virgin has this itinerary set up. Bimini is the final day. You need to get all your stuff packed, everything out into the hallway, get ready to depart the ship. And yet we're in Bimini until 10 p.m., which means that you've got a bit of a conflict there in trying to get everything done and also get to dinner, any activities you want. So it is a very tough and rushed day. I think that's part of why the resort was so empty last sailing towards the end of the day, and it seemed like it was likely that way again today. So when I got back, it was about 3:45, and at 4:15 today, once again, the lineup included a listing for Scoop. There it is. I went to check it out, went to the roundabout, looked around. There was pretty much nobody there. There was one person there that usually controls the soundboard from their iPad, and they were sitting there waiting. Seemed like they were ready to hold an event if they wanted to, but there were no members of the Happenings cast, and there was nobody else there to kind of watch it. So they did have it scheduled today. They never removed it from the lineup. It was there all the way to the point of when it should have been occurring, but it never occurred, and there wasn't even anyone there to kind of check and confirm that there wasn't enough demand to let it happen. So that's another one of those examples where the lineup really isn't the most accurate, and that's only if you could actually see the lineup, because when we were ashore in Bimini, of course, that app once again did not work at all. You just got that error that it was not connected to the ship despite being on the same Wi-Fi network as the ship. So they definitely have to get that sorted out, because a lot of people tonight were complaining about that problem, where when they were ashore they could not see dining reservations, they could not make dining reservations. You're basically blind to what's going on board the ship, and you're unable to manage your trip despite the fact that so much effort and energy is put into the fact that you're supposed to use that app for everything, to communicate to sailor services for anything that you need, and to know what's going on at all times. So after that, I did shower up and get my stuff packed, ready to go to head home tomorrow. It is then 7 o'clock. We returned to a place that we were at before, Pink Agave, for another dinner this evening. An absolutely delicious venue, one of the better ones on board the ship. Extroversion and of course tonight Pink Agave were the two that I repeated of the sit-down venues. Of all the dining venues on board though, I did eat every single one of them, so I got to try all of them at least once, and those two were ones that of the sit-down I did repeat a second time. So then after dinner I did go out onto the outside decks over on deck number 7 and check the side of the ship to see did they light anything up. Last week the ship was dark, it was really kind of dreary, and it kind of killed all the energy that had built from the Bimini Beach Resort with those bonfires going on. To return to a dark ship, nothing going on, no activity, just really kind of a dreary looking sight, lost all that energy. And there was a ticket put in by Sailor Service that was supposed to go to the right areas and get taken care of. It was an incident report that should have been looked into and figured out a resolution. So tonight I did check to see if anything came of that, and unfortunately the ship was once again dark and dreary, nothing going on, nothing exciting. And that is one of the things that we've seen, is this ship and Virgin Voyages as a whole currently seems to be very focused on social media marketing. They're more concerned about getting people to sail than actually the sailors that are sailing. And we saw that again tonight where the lights weren't turned on, and one of the big reasons was it's controlled by the bridge and managed by the marketing department, who is not on board. So the marketing team is the one responsible for turning the outside lights on for a ship, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but really kind of tells you the mindset of the way Virgin is operating, that the lights and the decor, the energy of the ship is controlled by the marketing team rather than sailor services or anyone that is on board that is actually trying to connect with the guests where it should be getting managed and thought through from. So then after that, I did head to the dock and check out our departure at 9:30. That led to 10 o'clock, and right at 10 o'clock was then Stargazers. That was an hour later than last time. Last time it was 9 o'clock with the 9:30 departure. So it lined up. This time it was 9:30 departure with a 10 o'clock Stargazers. And it was very windy out there. The wind was blowing straight towards the back of the ship, so it was very windy. Once we started to go, it calmed a little bit because of the fact that we were moving with the wind. So it helped to kind of counter it a little, but it was still a very windy night to be out there and enjoying that show. And when I got back to my cabin, you could really tell just how much that wind had shifted around when I looked out on the balcony. You could see the smoke from the funnel not just dropping down or going off a distance, but actually sinking right down the side of the ship, all the way down to about deck 7, and flipping back up with the currents back up to the top of the ship, and just kind of causing this loop of the smoke falling down and rising up through the ship over on the port side of it as we're sailing along tonight. So that did it for the lineup for today, the final lineup of this voyage. And of course, we do not have any interviews, daily dines, or daily venues. We've covered everything for this voyage. So it is time to take a look back at what went on in this voyage, how things were, how things could improve, because this is the first season for this, not just ship class, but an entire cruise line. Virgin Voyages is brand new. They have a lot to sort out, a lot to figure out. There's some good, some bad, whole lot of things to kind of look into and dissect with this sailing. They of course have a lot of growing pains going on. They are at a lower capacity than they are hoping to sail at, what they should be sailing at, and a lot of those passengers they do have are travel agents and friends and family of the crew, which are discounted rates. It does seem like at the moment they are struggling to get authentic cruisers, authentic sailors on board that are purely booking and paying full price. It is primarily those travel agents that seem to be filling the ship at the moment. So hopefully that will change and improve things. And one of the side effects of that is that it is throwing that demographic of the sailors off, which is affecting the reviews that are coming through. There are a lot of people commenting on the fact that it doesn't align with what was expected, what was marketed, and that's not something that they can directly control. Something that needs to come from more people booking and fewer travel agents filling that void of bookings that are needed. But the energy of the voyage was helped by the weather. We of course had better than expected weather. We are in October. Slight chance of hurricane during this time. Typically it can start to get a little bit cooler, but we had insanely hot temperatures for most of this voyage. We had barely any rain. It was mainly on those Scarlet nights. For some reason, the rain loved to come down when it was time for Scarlet night, and it occurred both sailings as well as in Miami. But overall, the big thing, of course, those flat seas. We never really got too rough of a sea. We did get a little bit yesterday, but overall, for a 10-day voyage to have as long a period of flat seas as we did is something you typically don't see, especially around hurricane season like we are. And the itinerary, we were supposed to get two different ones, Dominican Republic and Costa Maya. Fortunately, we ended up with Costa Maya both times, so we had a mix of 2 port, 2 sea days for each of these voyages. And those port days were long, both in Bimini and Costa Maya. They were very long port days, arriving early in the morning and staying until after sunset. The beach club was, of course, the most incredible private destination. It was a big surprise, a lot better than I would have expected for its size, for how small it is. It is not an entire private island, but it is so well thought out and designed exactly as it is needed to be utilized properly. And that is where part of the problem comes in, is that it is well thought through to be a destination from morning to night, but the itineraries don't allow it to be used properly. They really need to think through the itinerary differently, possibly flip it around. Going from Miami straight into Bimini, giving guests the opportunity to immediately come on board and enjoy that beach day, and then having your Bimini day followed up by getting a bonus hour of sleep that night, so you can go into a long sea day and potentially a Scarlet night, would allow for a second chance if Scarlet night were to get rained out with a later sea day, but also allow Bimini to be at the beginning so guests can enjoy that entire duration of that Bimini day and have a sea day at the end of the voyage that they can then pack and take their time to get ready to depart, because currently the setup really limits a lot of people from enjoying Bimini by forcing them to come back and get ready to leave the ship on that last day. And the food on board was incredible. That really is the highlight of Virgin Voyages, is the food. They did not disappoint with that. They had higher quality ingredients, better dishes, overall just a better experience than other cruise lines. The tiny little dining rooms really gave you that intimate experience. Each one was so unique, different style, different feel, even just the way they were served. It wasn't a series of dishes, but some were a little more family style, some were a blend of them. There was just a very nice variety of experiences all throughout the voyages to have for dinner each night on board. And I, of course, did eat at every venue, and every venue is individually prepared. Across the ship, all your quick service restaurants still take your order and make a dish and bring it to you or hand it to you. There are no buffets, and if you don't want to wait for anything, there are the quick service grab and goes throughout the ship, not just in the galley, but in other areas like the dock house. You'll find fridges that are open with all kinds of items, from sandwiches and fruit and different snacks and desserts. Changes throughout the day, a lot of different items you can just grab, bring back to your cabin, bring to a pool deck, wherever you may be going, and just have a nice little snack without having to wait and go out to a venue later. The galley is the equivalent of a buffet on board. It is a large venue, the largest dining venue, and possibly, honestly looking around, it might be slightly bigger footprint than the Red Room, so it may be the biggest venue on board. And every station is delicious. So many different dining areas you can go to, different varieties, from the noodle place to sandwiches, breakfast, burgers, desserts. You got all different kinds of items here. But it is very confusing. It is a confusing venue. It is confusing to know how it's supposed to operate. There's not much instruction, as there is with most of the voyage. Not a whole lot of information given out to the sailors to know how things operate, what's going on, how you're supposed to handle things. So it is a very confusing experience. It's been about 50-50 hit or miss. Some days we come in here, we get prompt service. Someone comes, take our order, help us get a menu. Other days we're sitting around waiting and wondering what's going to happen. So it is a very kind of confusing and sometimes frustrating experience to come to the galley compared to the way it should be. So that is something they need to work on. It would be great if the app had additional features that you could just click a button to get a server to come over to you, or even to just let us place our own order. The servers are basically just using an app and entering what we tell them. There's no reason we can't do the same thing and directly place our order in the app to get our food delivered to us. The other thing is that the hours are lacking. The individual venues within the galley have their own hours. So while the galley's open 24/7, only the diner with breakfast food is actually open 24 hours. The rest are closed most of the time, and at dinner there aren't many venues open either. When you come at night, pretty much the only thing that is available is that diner food. So if you want a late night snack, you have to get an entire omelet, a full thing of breakfast food. The pizza place closes at 1:30, so there are not a whole lot of options. There is no real little snack that you can grab, and they don't even have desserts available if you want that. So they really need to get more variety in here. They need something else. It would be great if they rotated so that each night perhaps a different one of the venues is left open throughout the night, so that when you come up for a late night snack, you can get something different each day of the voyage. And in addition to the sit-down venues and quick service venues like the galley, there are a bunch of other little quick service venues all throughout the ship that offer things. The Sun Club Cafe was the big surprise to me. I did not expect that one to to be very good, and it was absolutely delicious when I had it the other day. And I don't think a lot of people know it exists because it is tucked on deck number 16 above the pool area, and it never seems to get crowded. There's barely anyone ever out there eating it, so it is one of those ones that you should check out, be aware of it there. The other one is Social Club Diner. Probably the best venue on the entire ship of any kind, because it blends social with food, has a lot of different activities to participate in, but a lot of different types of foods, a lot of good snack foods. The hot dogs are delicious, the pretzels, the popcorn, candy, desserts, all different kinds of cupcakes and items, but it has terrible hours. It is one of those venues that Virgin has never really used in their marketing. They market Razzle Dazzle like crazy, despite the fact that most people on board seem to dislike that venue. It is not very popular with the sailors from what I've heard, but Social Club Diner has been incredibly popular with everybody that has found it, and that's part of the problem, is most people are not finding it until later into the voyage. It is not something they're looking for when they get on because they don't know it exists. It's not even listed in the deck plans that I received from Virgin. It's not an item that they've included. So it is almost a secret on board that it exists. And the hours are very short. It's not open in the morning and it's not open late at night. It really needs to have much longer hours. And for this sailing and the last one, it is closed on the Bimini Day. So it closed last night and remains closed until the end of the voyage. So you can't even enjoy it until the end. And many people didn't find it till the last day that it operated. By contrast though, Lick Me Till I Scream, that is by far the most popular venue that everybody knows about. Everyone finds that day one and enjoys that. At least I did every single day of the voyage. It's always a line there, tons of people, absolutely incredible ice cream. But that's one of the things that didn't live up to the promises. They did promise a changing flavor every single day, and there was no change. It was a single set of flavors the entire voyage. Same with the cones, expecting a bit of a change rotation in there. They had previously talked about a black cone, which was never an offer on this sailing or the previous sailing. So it seems like that venue is pretty much like all of them a static set of items. Same venue, same items every single day. Pretty standard schedule as well. So that's one of the promises not lived up to. The other big one with the food is the drinks. They mentioned the basic bevies, said it was an improvement over the others, that you got a ton of flavored waters and sodas, but there were no flavored waters. There are machines in the galley that have 4 offerings, but typically 3 of them are juice and 1 may be a lemonade, fruit punch, or a tea, and they don't seem to change until they run out. So for instance, orange juice was offered from the day that we got on board all the way until today. Today it changed out to, I think, an orange passion fruit guava drink, but all the machines changed at once, and that didn't align to sailing changes. It wasn't the beginning of each sailing or the end. It seemed like it went until they ran out of orange juice, and then they switched out the flavor. And that is how it's been for all the different flavors, but you only have 4, and most are breakfast flavors. So you don't have flavored waters, you don't really have those drinks, you only have what's the juice and then the sodas, and the sodas aren't very good. For some reason the machines are not calibrated right, they're not set up right, but none of them seem to function right, whether it is the soda machines that you can serve yourself in the galley, the ones located in Bimini Beach Resort, or even the ones that are used by the bartenders behind the bars. None of them seem to function quite right. You can't get a ginger ale anywhere. It always seems to come out as soda water, and most of the flavors are very weak and primarily just the carbonated water. So I'm not sure why that is, because it is 3 different types of machines, but they all seem to function equally poorly, which is not something that you normally see. It is very rare that you see soda machines that are not functioning right, and to have every single Coke machine owned by Virgin, regardless of model, all function poorly almost seems like they may be weakening it to save money or something. It certainly doesn't seem like something that should naturally just occur as an issue. And they are aware of it, because today I did go to the bar at the pool to get a ginger ale, and the supervisor stopped the bartender and told them to grab another cup and put a little bit in, and she examined the color and checked it because she knew they've been having issues with it just being soda water. So they know this is a problem, yet it's been 10 days and we haven't really seen any change from the day I got on till today. All the ginger ales in the galley still do not function, and guests are still bringing it up and questioning it. And of course, in addition to the food on board, there is the entertainment, and that is one of the areas that they are probably lacking the most. That is a big source of a lot of the complaints on board. There are not a lot of activities that occur. They do have a couple shows that go on. The Untitled Dance Show Party thing saw first day of each sailing. That one, like the others, is an incredible show. Their entertainment and their activities are very original. They have a lot of creativity, a lot of depth, a lot of detail. They add a lot to it, like we saw with the bingo. It was not just traditional bingo. It had some extra layers, a whole lot of extra fun and entertainment thrown into it. And that is how the Virgin Entertainment is across the board. Everything is slightly unique, different, original, creative, and especially those production shows, but there's not a lot of them. And that is where the problem comes in. There is a lot of dead time, a lot of space on the calendar where it is mainly fitness classes that are offered. But the problem are those fitness classes are pretty much all filled the moment you board the ship. And for many people, they aren't interested in them to begin with. So most people will have no activities until about 3-4 in the afternoon. And the concept that was originally promised with the Happenings cast involved a series of individuals that would meet the different needs of the guests. So instead of a single cruise director that you may or may not mesh with, you had a series of individuals that you should mesh with at least one of them, because they'd have all different styles, different personalities, different characteristics. And that first night, you'd board the ship and you'd have a variety of places that you can go. So you could meet the Happenings cast member that best matches you and kind of connect with them and follow them throughout the voyage to the activities that would be most appropriate for you. None of that has occurred on this sailing or the previous one. The first night, there was almost nothing that really went on. The Happenings cast is never introduced. The closest thing to an introduction is a video that played during bingo on the second sea day. There is nothing on the televisions to introduce them, even just the concept of them and who they are. There isn't anywhere to get that information. Maybe it's somewhere buried in the app, but most people can't access the app anyway. So it really did not work. It felt no different than the regular cruise director staff that you would have. It's just a whole bunch of random people that are running the activities. The different personas that they are trying to embody doesn't really come out for the most part. Abby, the host, is probably the only one that really has a persona that you can feel and experience every time she is involved in something. Beyond that, the Happenings cast is pretty much just the cruise director staff, like on any other cruise line, any other cruise ship. And they go around and they do the activities that are assigned to them, and there are very few of them. They really don't overlap much. There are a couple of rare instances, though, where it just doesn't make sense how they were scheduled. For instance, the other day we went to that Risky Quizness. That is a trivia game, and the kinds of people that would go to a trivia game, an event like that, really enjoy Scoop There It Is, which is also trivia and activities and games, but they overlapped the two. They did not leave a gap for people to get from one to the other. They actually overlapped it to ensure that if you were interested in both, which are likely the majority of the people that attended either, you could not go to them both. And then they claim that because of that, the schedule is filled out with all the pop-up entertainment, but pop-up entertainment only works if you're actually going somewhere. If you have an event to go to, if you're traveling across the ship, if you know where you want to go, you run into pop-up entertainment and it works. If nobody has anywhere to go, though, the pop-up entertainment doesn't work. So what ends up happening is the entertainment pops up in the roundabout where people are sitting and reading and trying to have some peace and quiet because the ship is very loud and that venue is empty during the day. So a lot of people are sitting there reading, and you've got a band that pops up and performs. So it seems to annoy those people, while the people that would enjoy it have no idea it's occurring and are not anywhere near that because they're sitting in their room or sitting somewhere else because there isn't anything going on. The way pop-up entertainment should work is like those two events. If you know people are going to be in one venue, say the athletic club, and they're going to have to travel all the way down to the roundabout, that gives you that window, the perfect opportunity to put somebody in those elevators that you know they're likely to use, to put somebody in a lobby that they're probably going to pass through. That's where pop-up entertainment works. But the way that it operates here, it's almost trying to be entertainment that is scheduled without telling anyone it's scheduled, and it doesn't work. There isn't any logic or reasoning behind it, and there's nothing to draw people through to allow them to accidentally run into it. So the concept really doesn't seem to function too well, and most people are missing it, which is then angering them and annoying them because there is so little entertainment that they feel like what is here they're not able to see. And at the same time, when it is scheduled, there's not too much to it, so people are getting disappointed in what's there. So they really are in kind of a jam where they need to get a lot more entertainment going, a lot more activities. They need to do it in a hurry because the longer it is continuing as it is, they are losing a lot of sailors, a lot of repeat cruisers, but also just getting a ton of bad reviews out there, a lot of real negativity being posted online, primarily because of the lack of entertainment, the lack of activities, and the way they've structured things on board the ship. And of course we did have the parties. We had Odyssey, but then we missed Scarlet Night. We had it supposedly, but not the pool party, both times, both sailings. And while I think Scarlet Night was executed as it was supposed to, with the exception of the top deck, because there was supposed to be karaoke up there that just vanished, and there was likely something in the pool area before the pool party that went away. But for how much Virgin did hype that event, there was no follow-through. There wasn't much of a plan B, and it really seemed to be a letdown. It wasn't the big event that you'd expected. Odyssey actually turned out to be the biggest event of the cruise, and it was that way in both sailings. That Odyssey was a huge event that many did not go to because they didn't realize it existed, because they didn't understand how to use the app, and it was not the thing that Virgin was pushing like crazy. So instead, people missed that, and of course Scarlet Night, when they saw that, did not live up to expectations, so that once again led to disappointment and confusion. The overall Scarlet Night event that did happen, the pre-party, doesn't seem to work well. It follows that pop-up logic, but it ends up leading people astray, getting them confused, and it's later in the sailing where it doesn't even work to try to get people to learn how the ship is laid out. It just seems like a bit of an awkward hour and a half where people are expecting something that never really comes to be. And perhaps if that pool party did take place, that would be the event that we would all expect to be coming and have it occur. But for ours at least, there was tons of hype, tons of build-up by the Virgin Cruise Line leading up to the sailing that never went anywhere once we were on board. And of course, the technology. That is the problem child of every cruise line, but it is an especially big issue on board here. One of the promises, of course, of Virgin is the free internet, which never seemed to work. Still can't send any emails, even though that is supposed to be one of the functions that you're allowed to do with the basic internet, is send emails. And it is very slow, very buggy. You cannot walk around and stay connected, but even just sitting in a room, you'll often just randomly get disconnected from the network. It requires a lot of manual connecting to the network every time you want to use it, and the app barely functions. It requires a deletion and reinstall when you get on board. Oftentimes requires it multiple times when you're at home. Sometimes multiple times even on board you have to do that. But every time you disconnect from the network, the app gets killed. It falls into a broken state and requires resetting and clearing and all kinds of hassle to get it to function again. And because the network doesn't work, that happens a lot. And that's where most individuals seem to get stuck. They don't understand how to fix the app, how to troubleshoot it, how to get past that stuff. So the moment it breaks, they can't fix it, and then they're left without the app all sailing. But the only way to find out what's going on is through the app. The only way to make dining reservations is in the app. The only way to know when we're allowed to get off the ship is in the app. And even what we're doing tomorrow to get off the ship, you gotta look in the app. When the clocks change, the only way to know was the notice in the lineup of the app. There are no clocks around the ship. There's nothing to tell you the time. There's no notices. There was nothing put on the television. And a lot of people missed events, were late for things because they didn't get the time change that occurred. They didn't get any of the notices if their app wasn't working. And if you looked at the television in your room, if you looked at the tablet, it did not update to the times either, which throws people off because anywhere that you would have looked would not have let you know that the time changed if your app wasn't working, which is the case for a majority of the people on board. And even just when it does work, it is very difficult to use. It is almost impossible to understand just what dining venues are currently open. It's like a very buggy, roundabout way to do it. They need to get a new section in there to let you know what's happening now. There needs to be a happening section that just shows you what dining venues are open at this exact moment that I can go eat at. Perhaps even show what dining venues are closing in the next half hour or opening in the next half hour so that you can make a decision on if you need to go eat now or if you want to wait for something else to come. And even with the activities, there needs to be a way to very quickly and easily tell what is going on at this moment, because with the way the lineup is, things disappear and add all the time, but they also gray out when they're in the past. So once an event starts, it's hard to tell whether it's still going on or if it's completely over. So a section of the app to know what is happening now would probably be a huge benefit to making it more functional and putting it right up front, because it takes several clicks to get to the dining and it's several clicks in a completely different direction to get to the activities. And then if you want to know if any services are available right now, that's a whole nother area that you have to dig into. So it is definitely a very complicated and complex app to use, and it is so slow to get through any of it to get it to load all of that data. And then of course in the cabin we have a tablet there as well, and that tablet is pretty neat. The cabins are really neat, really high tech. They have the mood lighting. Probably the coolest effect is when you open that cabin door after they've cleaned it for you and the lights fade in, the blinds open up. It's just a very neat kind of wow moment when you enter that cabin, and everything just kind of presents itself for you. So the cabins are really neat, but that tablet is a little bit frustrating. It seems to be very buggy. We had ours break 3 different times. That's 3 different days out of 10 that we've had to take it to get services to get fixed. And it happens late at night, which means that it is a big hassle to try and go and get that resolved. So that is problematic, that they are not very reliable. Other people have reported issues with it as well. It's something that controls your whole cabin, so it needs to be able to be consistently relied on at all times. And the offerings in it are pretty neat. They offer you the movies and the TV shows. They work great with the television to put it up on the screen for you. But beyond that, it has pretty heavy limitations. The tablet itself doesn't actually let you watch anything. You cannot see anything on it. You're tied to that television. So if you wanted to see one of those movies and watch it out on your balcony, you cannot do that. You must do it in the cabin with the television. The tablet itself will not play anything. There's also very limited television stations. There's a couple news stations, and that's about it. There are no other stations at this point. They're working on a contract to get a few other ones in, hopefully some sports networks, because that was something that, of course, a lot of people were missing. They were all looking over at the Indy the other day to see some of the football games. But there is no sports bar on board either, so the cabin is the one place that you'll have to go to watch those sports events. And the pool deck doesn't even have a TV. There is a very clear space that looks like it is meant for television, but currently there is no television up there. So your cabin on your screen is the only place you can actually go to watch anything if more content were to be made available. There's also very limited virgin content. The only thing shown is the actual muster drill. If you want to, say, see that video of all the happening cast, get the introductions, there isn't anything there. The section exists, which means it is a great opportunity, something pre-made for them, but they are lacking any of the content, any of the offerings to actually take advantage of that area. And there is no music. Virgin is known for its music. They push the music, but there is no streaming music available. You cannot pick a different station and play it in the cabin. The only option you have is if you watch one of the 2 ship channels, you can watch a view of the side of the ship, or you can watch a view out the front of the ship. Each of those do have music that plays over them, but there is no option to play country, pop, rock, whatever, and just have some music in your cabin if you want, which seems like an oddity considering how music-focused the Virgin brand is, yet their cabins on board have no music access at all. And when you look at other cruise lines, that is something that's very common. As long as I can remember cruising, I've always remembered there being a TV station that played music videos 24/7 that we'd often just leave on when getting ready. And then of course you can control the cabin. Like I said, when you enter, it has that nice little wow moment, but you can also set different moods, different tones, but you can't customize it. While you can set an individual mood, you can't just set the lights of the cabin to a particular color. You must choose one of the moods and use it as it is. That's something that they could probably easily tweak with an advanced mode that let you tweak the colors and the brightnesses and get a little more flexibility in it to get it to your exact likings in the future. The biggest issue though with this, and it's been mentioned a couple times, touched on so far in these, is the lack of communication. Leading up to this cruise, there was horrible communication as things were canceled, as they were changed. Things that were known, like the dropping of Dominican Republic, all the way back in June, were not communicated to us until the last second. Months later, they finally communicated that to us, even though it was known for a long time before that. And that's something where I found out online because it changed in the sales area long before it was ever communicated to me personally as someone booked on this cruise. So it seems like their communication is lacking, whether we're getting the bands at home, getting them at the port, when we can book dining, what we're told isn't what's actually occurring. There's just a lack of communication, and what is there is almost always seeming to be incorrect for some reason. And we got on board, it seems to be very much the same. There is very little communication. They are so scared of any announcements that it really puts all the sailors at a disadvantage and makes everybody really kind of frustrated and annoyed as they go through this voyage, because you don't understand what's going on. You don't know what's happening, how things are supposed to operate. There's no instructions, no information, no printouts. Everything is in the app, which never works for most people. So it just creates a very bad situation. And even something as basic as the cabin TV, they have your name on it when you arrive, but they don't use it for anything. It would be a very easy thing to put notices up, to put information. So when you return on that first night and the clocks are supposed to change at 2 a.m., when you open your cabin, to have the TV turn on and display a message of change your clock. Simple things like that do not exist, and if they're not going to use paper, they need to start putting digital messaging around the ship, but there is no digital messaging. They finally have the lineup in a couple locations, but there's no other messaging around. There's no ship maps anywhere. It's just a very limited and restricted communication platform on the ship where you really can't get much information unless you go out of your way to specifically find someone and get those answers, because they are not just giving them up, and hopefully when they do tell you, they'll have the right information, which isn't always the case, unfortunately. So that is the fundamental problem here, is that Virgin has a bit of an identity crisis. They say they're one thing, they want to be something else. They're trying to be something that they can't be, and it's causing all kinds of problems. A lot of turmoil, a lot of confusion, and a lot of angry passengers that you see throughout the voyage. And those passengers are not going home and spreading the positive word. And that is what Virgin needs right now, because the ship is incredible, the food is incredible, the entertainment is lacking, but what they have is incredible. They need to continue progressing, they need to clean things up, get more organized, get better communication, really build this into a platform that people know what's going on, that they can work with. But the way that it is right now, it feels like Virgin is more focused on marketing and sales. Everything is being done around the mindset of what's going to make that Instagrammable moment, what can they post on social media, how can they get this message out there, what can they do to make people see the ship and want to book it, rather than worrying about the sailors who've paid the money to be on board, who are trying to enjoy the cruise. It's more about the marketing to everybody else than the sailors on board. And that in itself is not the way a cruise line should operate. The sailors should always come before anything else. But you get the feeling many times that that is not the case on board here, that it is not that mindset. And hopefully that will change. Hopefully as they get a little more established, as they have fewer travel agents on board, as they have more paying passengers, they'll realize that mindset change has to occur, and it will start to change the tone of things. But for this first voyage, this is the end. We're done with Scarlet Lady, the first ever Virgin Voyages cruise ship. But we're not done with Virgin Voyages at this point, because we do have some more sailings coming up. We of course had this one, the back-to-back Costa Maya sailing. But next up is not Virgin, it is Royal Caribbean return with the Odyssey of the Seas for an 8-night sailing out of Fort Lauderdale in April of 2022, visiting Grand Cayman, Curacao, and Aruba. And that was supposed to be a back-to-back with Valiant Lady with another 8-night sailing. Fortunately, like the 14 cancellations of Scarlet, Valiant got canceled as well and bumped to 2023. But we'll be returning a little sooner than that. October of 2022, 1 year from now, we'll be back to Virgin Voyages for another back-to-back. 2 7-night sailings on the Resilient Lady out of Athens, Greece. And that'll be the 7-night Adriatic Sea and Greek Gems, as well as the 7-night Greek Island Glow. So unlike this one, we'll have 2 completely distinct itineraries, no overlaps in the ports, 14 days of new destinations and excitement all throughout that voyage. So be sure to return for that, and of course the Odyssey coming up before then. So tonight, we are currently sailing from Bimini to Miami. Final destination, headed back there. We were scheduled to arrive at 6:30 a.m., but as we saw on the midpoint, we are likely to arrive much earlier. It is now about 2:50, so we're probably about an hour away from arriving into Miami. When I checked earlier, we could already see all the lights of the Miami skyline right on the horizon, and we're definitely getting closer to land at this point. We're going about 8 knots, so not a fast speed, but just enough to get from Bimini to Miami in a single night. So that about does it for this sailing. Hopefully you enjoyed it. It was a very interesting one. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of new things, a lot of things that worked, some that didn't work. But overall, this is the start of Virgin Voyages. This is not the end. That is why we're returning to it. That's why we want to see it again, because this is going to grow, it's going to evolve, it's going to change. We saw that with the Quantum. It was a mess on that first sailing and incredible on that second sailing, and it evolved, and it was a completely different platform, different product by the time we sailed it on Anthem. And we're going to see the same thing going on with Virgin. They've just gotten started. They're going to keep evolving and changing, and they're going to have to adapt to what the guests want, because they can't allow guests to keep leaving angry and posting all the reviews and everything else. They need to get the positive feedback. And unfortunately, we did not see them react to some of the feedback that we've given them on the last sailing for this one. But hopefully they'll start listening and start responding and taking those suggestions and making changes for the better, so that when we return in a year, we'll have a much better and different product than we have now. And more importantly, because we were here now, we can understand what's changed and better appreciate where they were and how far they've come at that time. But for now, that is the end of this voyage. 10 nights on board the Scarlet Lady. Thanks for watching. Thanks for coming along for this journey. I am Derek Cohn. Hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for the links.